Oh, perfect. So thank you so much for joining us here. Leila Laura, Love Karma Expert. If you don't know me, I help break open your heart and allow in whatever dream reality you want. And I'm here with astrologer Amanda Mary. And she's just profound. I mean, I'm sure some of you have been watching me in my very quick switch over to moving to North Carolina, and Amanda and her astrocartography gifts really helped me get here. So today I wanted to talk to Amanda though, because I have not been feeling normal. Like today, I got some really badass energy work with Dr. Linda Hurley this morning at 9 a.m. And it's the first day I've felt like a functional human being. Like the past 5 days, sleeping like, and not even just like lazy sleeping, like needing my body would not operate on less than like 12 to 13 hours of sleep. So, what's going on astrologically to be making this happen, Amanda?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because I mean, even knowing that things are coming astrologically doesn't make me immune either to the issues at hand or anything. It's like I'm like, oh, I should probably know better than anyone when there's a giant like emotional train wreck happening, but I don't, and I don't listen to my own advice. But it's kind of nice knowing like what's happening a little bit. Something that's really kind of, I think, hitting us collectively, especially those that suffer with mental health problems, or even, it doesn't have to be a mental health problem. It could even be like a physical problem. So physical ailments, illnesses, especially like the mind body connection is we're really kind of dealing with huge, as for the summer, a huge retrograde season. We currently have 5 planets in retrograde. And what that means is that, yeah, I know it's crazy, right? We're normally like all terrified of Mercury in retrograde, but we have Neptune, we have Pluto, we have Chiron, we also have Jupiter. So we have like a whole huge kind of trifecta, including, Chiron's a mini planet slash asteroid. But basically, where when we go through any sort of retrograde period, it's kind of like when you hit the rewind button on something. And for us specifically, it's a lot of like collective trauma, I think, based in mental health, because Neptune rules mental health, and that's like a big prominent player. Jupiter expands like an issue. So it's like, here's this little tiny issue. Here's Jupiter to blow it out of proportion. And then Pluto is like, I always like to refer to her as Dr. Pimple Popper. It's like, oh, and then we're going to squeeze it out and it's going to be gross and we're going to look at it. And then we have Chiron, who is this healer, but he's like not really that good at healing himself. So we're like, oh my God, put the Band-Aid on the big stucky, like yucky wound here and like fix it up. So it's like one big kind of gross astrological mess.
Well, let's go back real quickly just to break that down a little bit. So, like when you talk about Chiron being the poker, but they're not that good. So, what does Chiron do?
So Chiron in astrology and mythology is this centaur doctor, son of Saturn. So Saturn is like this big strict overlord, and his son Saturn is this centaur. Now, centaurs in astrology and mythology are like wild party animals, except Chiron isn't like that. He's this do-gooder. He always tries to help people, heal people. He's a doctor, but he has this terrible wound on his leg, and he tries everything possible to heal it, except he's never able to. So he's always kind of looking to help other people to ease that burden.
Wow, that's profound. Now, is he successful at actually alleviating that burden?
So in the mythology, he never actually is, but he finds sort of the purpose in helping other people achieve the same level of healing that he would try to gather, especially now that we're in Aries Chiron. So it goes through the signs just like anything else, Aries to Pisces, all 12 signs. In Aries, we're dealing with collectively, this is pretty powerful, a wound to our own identities. Aries is like our essence as a human being and our wounded identity. So whether it's the color of your skin, your sexual orientation, just who you are, weight, your ability, things like that. So collectively, it's like any of our innate wounds there, like our sensitive points, are being picked at, really picked at.
Wow, I so resonate with that because, I got to be honest, as someone who, when I'm like in my high self center point, like I feel completely connected to my purpose, completely connected to what I'm here for, and literally like clear to it to the point of like having a bit of a statement where kind of when people get to know me, I like to let them know, like, hey, I'm a mom, but I'm not a normal mom, right? And it's because I have this drive for the Heal Your Own Karma School, the Heal Your Own Karma Library, all the things that are coming down the line. But I gotta say, for the past like 3 or 4 weeks, I've felt like I don't know what I'm doing with my life.
Makes honestly sense, especially, people, because you're not the only one, as people that are feeling this cloud or this fatigue. It's really this Neptune component, because we even just think about the imagery of what Neptune looks like as a planet.
Yeah.
It's a gaseous planet, it's foggy, you're not actually able to see anything clearly. So if we kind of apply that to our own existence, we're kind of getting disillusioned. We're disillusioned. We are not able to see the endpoint clearly. And that causes, I think, the anxiety for a lot of people. Probably your anxiety is that you're not able to quite see what direction to go in or where to turn. Dealing with all of that, add in dealing with like your identity wounds. And I love that the Heal Your Own Karma School. It's literally, I mean, that would be like the most Chiron path. It's like, oh, hey, I have a wound. I finally learned to heal it. Now let me teach you how to heal it. That's, the essence of how we are able to kind of come to terms with that wound.
Yeah.
But when we deal with the collective energy of it, it brings that all back to us, that self-doubt, to especially the self-doubt, like, where am I going? Am I doing the right thing? Questioning that. Add the blanket of fog, and people dealing with like brain fog and mental fatigue, it can really trigger that. Like, I think loss of hope as well, because Jupiter is hope. It's the god in astrology. So it's like the ultimate purpose, the ultimate attainment, having faith. So if we're in retrograde, it's like we're kind of reverted back to not having faith in our path, even though we know, like, logically, that we have a purpose, we know the steps, but then it's like, oh crap, I can't see like the direction at all anymore. Maybe I was wrong. It's like it's a really difficult thing. And this started really when the beginning of summer started.
Oh my gosh. And I so feel that because it's really interesting. Last night, I was saying to Andrew, I was like, okay, so we're in this big, beautiful, like magical house on top of a mountain, like sacred space, majestic views, like amazing river at the bottom. And then there's this part of me that's like, am I crazy to have moved here? Because it's like, daycare, there's a real bad work shortage down here. Like there's a lot of different things going on. And then even like generally hitting kind of a bit of like a malaise where it's like not feeling great, but also feeling unclear. Right. And like I've been being guided to create, I mean, Andrew and I were guided to create the Heal Your Own Karma School probably a year and a half ago, and the Heal Your Own Karma Library I've been hearing that for years, and it's so interesting to finally be in the time to birth it, and at the same time feel like all this energy trying to like disperse motivation.
Big time. And that's the rough. And I think too, it is because so many of these planets, I think, affect our health. I mean, if we think about like rulership, it's like Neptune rules the central nervous system, right? So, brain fog and fatigue, and Saturn, which is also retrograde, rules your muscular skeletal structure. So aches and pains, body issues. And even if we're having maybe some, I know some people with like endometriosis or whatever, having a really hard time with their reproductive cycle, Pluto rules the reproductive cycle, and Chiron is just overall health and lack thereof. So when we get hit by that too, I think there's a definite like physical element to all of this that I think is making us feel like no matter how hard we try to succeed, that's part of the Saturn issue with the retrograde. Is it's like Saturn is like the grandfather or the strict parent is like, okay, you go to college, you do this, you pay your bills. when Saturn's in retrograde, it's like you're a little kid at 16 getting thrown out of your house. So like everyone collectively is like, oh crap, I can't afford a car. Where am I going to live? How am I going to feed myself? It's scary, and it's that kind of energy. It almost deters us. It's like we have all these notes, how we want to move our business forward, our personal lives forward. And then that interaction, or that, they're called transits, happens, and it throws us for this loop, and everything we wrote down seems like nonsense. So it's like our confidence in our adulting skills is totally shaken. We get sort of reverted back to like 16 years old, or getting thrown out of a house, or just like being forced into an adulthood when we're not ready. That's the thing. It's like we feel like probably collectively it's like, oh, we have these things, they happen, but I'm not ready to take care of them in the long run. Our nurturance is sort of like put on hold of ourself, really.
Wow, that's so intriguing. Now, what do you think about? So, for instance, one of our tribe members is trying to buy a house right now, and she keeps on getting people. She'll find this dream house and she'll put in an offer. It'll get accepted or almost get accepted. And then all of a sudden they're like, I want more money. What's going on with that?
That's a good question. I'd say specifically that, well, first of all, depending on how she's feeling about this, it could be a moon issue. Moon issues usually affect our direct mood immensely, but I think that that's a Saturn thing. It's like, what are you not putting into your own, I think, self-worth? Like,
Yeah.
what is like lock on that? Like, what is it about the money to self-worth? In astrology, money and your self-esteem are like literally in the same bracket. So that self-worth, that's like a self-blockage to me. That's a definite Saturn, like, hey, you're blocking your own self-worth there. Your karma there is a little bit to do with the self-esteem.
Oh, that's so intriguing. Yeah, I would definitely say like a primary perception that you can't achieve your goals, or primary perception that things won't work out for you. Both of those are very common with that type of situation. And I think that's like one of the hardest things. Actually, there's a free download on LeilaLaura.com when you subscribe, and it'll heal the primary fear and expectation that things won't work out for you. And part of the reason I do that as the free healing is it's so essential in order to move anything in your system, that you don't have that type of like lens on that says, hey, it's like, doesn't matter if I invest this money, it's not going to help me.
Perhaps that's a fantastic resource to definitely, hopefully everybody takes advantage of that. And I think, to say the least, and I think, oh, it's such a common thing. And it really, because a lot of what's going on astrologically has to do with poking at our self-worth wounds. What have we accomplished even in the physical realm? And, I think it's no matter what price I pay, I'm like that secretly like, well, I don't actually even have that money. That's like not mine. The detachment between the person and the resources, I think might actually, I think I know who you're talking about in the tribe with that, but that's a difficult thing to overcome. And I think it really can block somebody from even moving. And that's a common transitory issue, Saturn, especially when it comes to housing, is that you don't feel like you should have your physical needs taken care of. Like you don't deserve shelter. It can be very difficult to kind of break yourself of that mindset, that karmic pattern. It's like, I don't deserve basic human needs.
Which is so true, and that's so common I find with people, especially who have like slave karma, because when you're a slave, you make money just to like live, just to like have like a desolate little bungalow and to get your basic food needs met, but like you're not paying bills, you're not doing anything like that. And yes, okay, interesting. So that's very Saturnian. Yeah, I can see that correlation. Wow, that's so intriguing. Um, so when Saturn and all these other planets are in retrograde, what's a good way to kind of navigate them?
A good way really to try to navigate them, and I will say this for this particular bracket in time, is that they're all for the most part in the sign of Aquarius. And what that means to me is you need to be doing almost what the opposite of what your brain or trauma is telling you to do. So, okay, you're getting this like ingrained impulse to, you know, almost manifest that somebody's not going to accept your housing offer, or somebody's not going to, provide for you, or you can't provide for yourself. It's almost to like totally do the opposite of what you would normally do, because Aquarian energy is kind of breaking the pattern or the cycle. So it's kind of identifying like, this is what I always do every time. Let me just try something a little bit different, just even slightly. I think it's, really, sounds simplistic to say, but for retrograde season is you have to step into the fear, like the fear that everything really could just completely change. And I think, it's common to be afraid of change because it's an unknown variable. But Aquarian energy is kind of embracing that you're going to be okay, and that even the people around you are going to help you be okay, because it's very community based, that kind of energy. It's not like you're going to fall flat on your face and no one's going to help you.
Yeah.
So reaching out to other people, because I love that we're doing this video, it's like you're not alone. We both suffer mental health issues. I deal myself with PTSD and very severe anxiety issues, and it's not that either of us are totally like void of having to experience these things, but it's finding that community too can really help with the retrograde portion, and kind of being open and honest about your mental health struggles. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And I think that that's a positive way of bringing this retrograde energy out of the shadows.
Mm.
Also, kind of remembering too, I think with people, retrograde really goes back about 6 months. So if we think back 6 months from right now, it's like, what was happening then? And what didn't I process? I think there's a lot of like unprocessed information that retrograde can really kind of deliver to us, depending on our individual chart and just depending on our individual traumas. It's like, okay, maybe I didn't deal with like having to suddenly move and I lost a lease, or people because of COVID. It's like now where some people are getting kicked out, or dealing with job shortages. It's sort of like, all right, what happened 6 months ago? How did I react to it then? And how is it affecting me now?
Yes, exactly. Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so profound. So profound. Yeah, I just feel like it's such a tough time for people to navigate, but even like, for myself, I feel like being in a bit of a leadership position, but then like going through um my own issues, right? So the stress of the move, the stress of everything, being someplace where I actually am on my Jupiter line with career and luck, and therefore feeling like, okay, I'm on this place and it should feel more magical. It should feel more better. And then it's like the energetics. So that makes so much sense. Oh my goodness. And I feel like, the other thing about mental health that I just want to say is I feel like most people have some sort of mental health issue.
Oh
And
yeah.
like we don't live in a society that supports mental health. It supports living in your masculine, pushing yourself to the limit, feeling that you're successful because you're like, oh, I'm so busy and all these other things. And it's interesting that like Saturn and Uranus are the ones playing on our energy at the time, when it's really this like feminine flow that we're being called into.
No, but absolutely big time. And it's people are too, with Saturn, it's falling into, we can fall into with anything like the shadow side or the light side, and falling into the shadow side of Saturn is the taskmaster, the slave master. It's like, okay, you can never take a day off if you're sick. I think pre-COVID, we kind of learned that that lifestyle is not, conducive to human life, just a little bit there. Um, falling into that, I can never take a day off. I'm going to lose everything if I ever stop. Um, and two, with Neptune, it's like, okay, if I, can in turn ease my suffering with addictions because I burnt myself out, then that we're going to compile that. And then it's just that whole big mess. And it's really, we live in such a society where it's almost, we would rather be, I think, sometimes physically sick than mentally sick. We don't treat them on the same playing field, when we know, it's funny, for like a scientific fact that the brain and the body are so connected. how can they not be? Seriously, that's something that I think even astrologically, we're coming into this big in the next year or so, so 2023, to what's called our Pluto return as a formed United States nation. Obviously, America was here way before, we kind of invaded it and took it over, and that's our own karma. So that's like karma coming up. Pluto return hasn't happened, meaning that everything collectively, trauma wise, that we've all gone through, so slavery and driving people off their land, and rape, wars, everything is kind of coming to this accumulation point. I think collectively we're all feeling that tidal wave of, this is the reckoning, this is like the karmic reckoning. So that's a heavy burden for like individual human beings to try to deal with energetically. That has to take a toll on people's mental health and well-being, being faced with prospects of stuff that we didn't even necessarily do ourselves. It's like past life karma, I think, is a big looming thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what can almost make people feel crazy, or kind of like, what was I saying to Andrew the other day? I was like, I feel like I'm a cloud. I feel like all of my energy is dispersed and I can't pull it back together and like force myself to like do what I need to do. And and yeah, that makes everything you're saying makes perfect sense, of that, like just being dispersed. And like, I'm super water, so when I'm dispersed, it feels really weird for me. Versus like in the flow and going with it. And and I think the other thing with like mental health is, I'm hearing to kind of talk about finger pointing a little bit for some people who might watch this who are in a relationship. And when we're in this time when there's so much energetic pressure to transform, to transmute, and when you're in that relationship, really making sure to put your energy on yourself instead of the other person. Because like during these times when we're under pressure and everything feels wonky and we're not sure what's going on in the world, if you can be really focusing your energy on yourself instead of other people, that's really where you can find some power. Like, I'm just seeing people like feeling like they're not getting tread, like a tire just spinning over and over again. And so one of the things I'm hearing is for people when they're really finding themselves spinning out and therefore focusing on fixing everybody else's problems, that they might be wanting to take a moment to look at themselves and see really what's being mirrored here for me.
No, that's beautifully said. And especially, but I like the way you said about the cloud disbursement, because it is, retrograde does make you feel like everything it's working in reverse and opposite of how it's supposed to be. So it's like we're moving backwards. I sometimes like to kind of explain it. When you're trying to park your car and like the other car pulls out at the same time and you have that weird moment where your like brain doesn't connect to like what just happened. It's like retrograde kind of like fools you into feeling like things are just out of your control too. And with retrograde, I love with the relationship stuff, because I can't lie. It's not like I haven't felt the urge to like explode at my significant other. And I'm like, why? Nothing bad happened. Like, I just feel this. I think we all kind of just feel, I think, irritated. There's like an irritation level because we don't know what's happening next. Retrograde is always means to us that we need to go inwards. It's the opposite of when a planet's direct, fully functioning forward. Retrograde is like internal work always, even if it feels like we have to make, that's something else. Like, we feel like we have to make great physical strides in this world, because like if we're not showing something like external, then it doesn't matter. This is like the opposite. And I think it's just so hard for us because we're like, but we don't feel like doing anything. And that's maybe a good thing. Not doing something is probably half of the time a really good thing.
Yeah.
If you have to cancel or reschedule some things, it's like, I used to be very much, and I still can be, catch myself in this Saturn like pattern, like, well, if I don't do it, then it's the end of the world and everyone's gonna like hate me or this and that. It's like, people are human beings too. And I think that we need to realize that on a mental health scale. I think we feel so much guilt
Yeah.
having to like stop the train from moving forward. It's like the apologizing, and it's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm not feeling well, and expecting like the wrath of like all the gods to come down upon us. It's that's a train I think that would love to stop. It's difficult though. I think especially as women to apologize significantly more for having to reasonably say I need to stop, doing
Oh,
what I'm doing and take a break.
absolutely. I cleared my day on Monday. I remember messaging you being like, my brain's not operating. I had to
And I
message,
was so happy you said that. I'm like, I don't care. Like, good, take it off.
but like, a client before you, I sent a video, and I always feel so apologetic anytime I have to reschedule. But like sometimes, like when there's so much going on energetically in the world, we just can't function. And I think that's the other thing that people need to hear today is like, hey, it's better to like step away, take some deep breaths, than to trying to push forward and through some of this stuff when you're feeling, whether it's mentally ill, whether you're feeling just out of sorts. It's so important to really just be able to allow your system to be. And that's the hardest thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's always a perpetual work in progress, I think, for most people, is being okay with, being okay with not being okay right at that second is
Yeah.
something that I think is a scary mountain for a lot of people to climb. It's like, okay, I'm not okay right now, but I will be, but I'm not, and I need to stop. And, kind of falling into that Chiron energy, it's like the real irony of this is that we're the ones beating ourselves up. We're the ones wounding us. It's not so much that the external world is trying to beat us up. Sometimes it is, sure, but it's like it is, as you were saying, it's more of an internal thing where we're even moderating ourselves and we're punishing ourselves, for perceived wrongs, like taking a mental health break or being anxious or being depressed. Sometimes it's better to just stop and, and take care of yourself because, there are great people in the world, but the main thing is you're going to have to take care of yourself no matter what. You are your own island in that sense. There's your community, but there's the you. And that's the Aries thing. It's like, take care of your essence, like you are your own person.
And I love that because I feel like sovereignty is such a common word I'm hearing lately, just in this need for us all to be regaining our sovereignty. And there's something I feel like about COVID, and it's not post COVID, but kind of like pre post COVID times we're in. And, I think so many of us, consciously or unconsciously, felt really disempowered during COVID. And so I feel like the ripple effect of that is still very real. It's very real. It's very much happening. And, it changes how we're looking at life. And the other thing is, I think, how much it puts so many people in survival mode, which you were touching on earlier, with kind of that feeling of like self worth, because when we're not in survival mode, it's so easy to be like, this is my worth. This is what I do. Enjoy it. Right. But then, like, when you're in survival mode, you're like, oh my God, I'll take any scraps. Just give it to me. Something, please.
Exactly. That's true. That does apply to that Chiron because it's a wound surrounding, that identity. It's like, oh, but give me anything. I'll take whatever you're willing to give me. And I think, I know in this like post, but that's the thing. It's like we're post, but we're not post, but it's like anything feels like it could go wrong again at any second. And I think the reality is that we went through such a horrible pandemic, and then it was like everything's fine now, guys. Go back to like what you're doing. It's like, oh, that's nice. Where's like the support to like transition into what are we doing now? Like it's that thing. It's like that retrograde feeling, 0 to 60 like in a second. Okay, that's good. It's like we're all normal now. It's like, are we though? Are we really? Like, because we're not. Even astrologically, we've advanced so much. Things have changed so drastically. That had to do back in really December of 2020. We went through what's called the Great Conjunction or mutation, meaning that everything shifted into Aquarius, which Aquarian energy is change. It's about society. It's about group collective. It's about goals and relations. And it's very much so about the structure of society. So it went through a big change, and that didn't stop. So now that people are saying, oh, revert back to your 9 to 5 job and everything's okay, it's people already took that kind of quantum leap into the next era, the next age of Aquarius, where things are different and things are more human. Being told to go backwards to things not being human or not being reasonable, I think for us collectively has put that like, huh, what are you talking about? You know, we've evolved past this. What do you mean go back and like do that? You know, that confusion, or I think even frustration for some people.
Yeah, frustration and just generally feeling like, what the fuck? I like, can we just witness what happened to
I
me?
know, it's like back to normal. Like,
And I feel like it's interesting because whether it's that people lost their job, whether it's that people went into, um, like being a private contractor, whatever it is, there's so much changing. And then on top of it, one of the coolest things I love, even though I know some people aren't thrilled about it, but is how a lot of us have been scattered across the country. And so it's like, we're in that like martini mixer being like blended more and more. And I think it's a really beautiful thing.
I totally agree. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I really think that this pandemic in that sense has been one of the best possible human experiences because I wouldn't have met you, you wouldn't have met me, you know,
Oh, definitely not. Yeah.
we met people in, you know, China. It's like, you know, all these people coming together. Also, Aquarius rules the internet. So we
Oh,
stepped into that age when we had to rely on the internet. I don't think that's the thing. It won't ever really truly phase out because that's the next, I think, human evolution of interaction. And it really, I think for those of us too that have, say, social anxiety or, you know, physical disabilities, it gives us this connection. You know, we aren't able to get there in person, but we can connect this way. I think it
yeah.
gives people freedom, and that part of it is amazing. I think that's truly an advancement and a great purpose of like digital technology is it can be human connection. And I think that actually it's interesting. We kind of move past like earth sign energy, which is all physical connection, being together, which is great. And we moved into cerebral air signs like air connection, communication via whether it's text message or it's video. It's like the next level, the next evolution. Not that earth is bad, it's great. We need grounding, but it's an interesting kind of like shift into the next like leveling up here and like kind of like a video game, I guess, kind of.
No, definitely. And I feel like it also like opens you up to new people because it's so interesting. Since I've moved from Massachusetts, there are actually like a handful of new healers that I've come into relationship with in a really beautiful way. And I just think it's so interesting as everything's kind of getting like washed in the laundry. We all have, and I'm going to be bold and I am going to say we all have. And if you don't have, you might be holding on to some toxic relationships, just saying, but we've all had, are being guided to kind of let go of certain relationships, certain dynamics. And I think for like highly sensitives, I know for myself and I know for Andrew, it was like, with COVID, it was this huge realization of how much like Andrew's commute affected him, and not only him, but the whole family. And, realizing that as much as sometimes we want to be in person, I feel like this era we're moving into is really, it's so interesting because it's like collaborative, but it's also very individual. So like, if I want to go move to Bali, not that I'm going to move again, but like, let's say, I could still be in touch with you. I can still be in touch with other people and creating these relationships. And not that it's not wonderful to get the hug and all the things you get from physical connection, but I feel like we realize also what depletes us in our journey or what can be like obsessive people pleasing connections.
No, and that's a fantastic way of kind of putting it. And something came to mind, you know, when you said his commute was draining him. I think a lot of people, I mean, me too. It's just we spent so much time, I feel like, and this is here where the Saturn comes in again, is that we spent so much time, even in our commute, even in our home, we're working 24/7. And we weren't really, I don't think, connecting with other people at a deeper level. We were just task focused. So, like, I'm driving to work, I am
Yeah.
leaving work, I am like in this wheel of process, as opposed to, okay, I'm done, turn the computer off, and you literally walk away. You're able to clear that energy as opposed to dragging it around with you like a boulder all the time. And it has, I think, because this would be the Pluto thing, we're purging, like you said, these toxic relationships that maybe we held on for too long because we felt like we had to please somebody, or it's a social obligation and we can't be rude and all the other things we kind of tell ourselves. And you know it was, I mean, honestly, sometimes it was nice to just have an excuse. Oh, I can't come out, it's because it's COVID. But it's like, but actually, you kind of drain me, energetically. I think, as you're saying, we've had a better assessment of what was necessary and meaningful interaction, what actually filled us up, as opposed to what completely depleted us. And now that it's in that sort of transition, maybe transition point, I think we're being more, I think this affects our mental health too, is being more aware that there are certain people or instances that are trying to come cling back onto us. We already kind of shed that skin. It's like, no, I don't want that old icky skin back on me, go away. And that's hard to deal with because socially it feels impolite. It feels like I can't put my boundary there. So boundaries, maybe that's, I think, too, for people dealing with mental health, it's like now you're having to firmly put in place boundaries, as opposed to just saying, oh no, it's COVID, I can't see you. Now it's like, I actually kind of can't see you because you're toxically sucking my energy out, and now I'm going to have to say that to you. So speaking your truth, I think, has become like a pressing matter of fact for people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's hard. It's hard to speak your truth that consistently, um, and like feel okay, because I know, at least for myself, as a trauma survivor and as someone who's experienced a lot of gaslighting and mental manipulation in my first marriage, um, like, it's just so incredible how hard it is to kind of like speak your boundaries and then hold your boundaries. Like, we hired a new friend down here to watch Raph, and the second I set boundaries on, like, I don't want sand in the house or whatever, it was like, it was this whole to do. And it was just, it's interesting because I'll notice my mind, and whenever I'm saying I'm talking about you guys, because you know I just feel like most of my experience is really that of the collective. But realized it was like, it was so painful to realize that I've continually attracted people who to work for me, whether it's for daycare, whether it's for nanny, whether it's for whatever, who do it, but there's this unhealthy toxicity that comes in, and it's these passive actions, these passive things. I just hired a new assistant, and she's just amazing. She took over my social media content, and within a week has, like, I don't know, 25 more followers or something like that. And I don't care about that type of thing, but I've always paid people to do social media and had no results, and always thought, oh, there's something wrong with, like, and people would say, oh no, you're not having realistic expectations, or all these other things. And to finally have someone who's actually just a good employee who does their job, it's like, oh my God, no, that wasn't me. You guys are all crazy, and it's not me. And I think that's the thing, is like, how are we affecting each other's crazy? Because I know, like, one of the things that creates mental illness is being in toxicity in relationships and with people who just aren't at your level. And so, going back to, this new paradigm that we're living in, it's like, if you can't be authentically yourself with someone, like, that is not someone you should be in a relationship with. And
No.
it's so cut and dry, and it almost feels like harsh. I know for like other sensitives, I'm sure they're feeling like, this feels really harsh to do this, but it's also so liberating and so freeing. And I feel like when I see people, even sometimes I'll be in session with a client, and especially if someone's in person, the rare time I do that, like I can literally feel these cords going between them and other people, and they're so sticky and they're so like thick and ravenous, and we don't realize that like these unhealthy cords with unhealthy people for you in your life, and that doesn't make anybody else bad, it just means they're not healthy for you. They really like suck our energy.
Big time, big time. And I know it's difficult. I think this is really this time and all this, as I said, for self-reflection. It is that, even I've gone through, especially in this period, it's like 5 people, like 5 long-term friends. Like, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm so unhappy, and I'm like, but it's actually not me like doing anything actively. It is because I'm choosing to keep the attachment. So
Yeah.
that's my part in that. But it was a painful, depressing realization. That's the thing. It's very hard to go through that. It's a grief process. It's like, oh my God, this is like the death and life of an entire relationship. And I need to release it. And it's even harder, especially for probably your empathic people, etc. It's like, feeling maybe animosity from the other person, or just feeling all of their emotions. It keeps you so embedded in their life. And I think this period of time is reflecting that so highly, that people that want to especially kind of not make that final definitive, I need to remove you from my life, or almost drawing out the suffering process. It's like
Yes.
a continual cycle and reflection, but never actually taking that action, like to just kind of end it.
Yeah, no, and it's so true, because sometimes it's our friends, sometimes it's our parents, sometimes it's the person you've been married to for 40 years. And for 40 years, they've refused to truly change in an authentic way. And therefore, you're like sitting there in your marriage. And I can feel this for a lot of people. So I'm not trying to point fingers or anything, but like I can really feel this like there are people who are knowing that their relationship and their marriage, their partnership, however you want to call it, it has disintegrated, and they're just staying in it because the fear of what life would be without that relationship, without that person, whether it's kids, whatever, is just so terrifying. But what happens when you kind of like keep yourself, staying due to terror and fear, is that you've created your own prison.
Yes, no, that's absolutely 100% true. It's almost going back to what you were saying earlier and what I was saying earlier. It's like, it is you, like you are the person that, and it is take back your own identity, heal your own wound. That's the thing. You have that power, even though you feel like it's everything else or every other circumstance. And I can't say, and I totally understand this with clients. It's like, but this person did this to me and this situation's holding me back. But it's like, but in reality, no matter what, it is you. Like you are that, you just have to find your inner independent entity, that Aryan, like, I don't care. It's me. I'm my sovereign self. I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to do all this myself, and then invite the people in that can support that individual self. Because otherwise you just dissolve into this forest of nothingness, really. It's like there's no individual you. And that, I think, is a painful point of depression, even in astrology, especially with people that have a lot of Libra in their chart, or a lot of Libra placements or Venus placements. It's all about their interpersonal relationships versus the opposite, which is Aries, which is me, myself, and I. And it's not in the negative sense. Like a Libra energy is going to look at that Aries energy and be like, what do you mean? You're so selfish. Like, I want to like please everybody. But it's like, we all have to integrate every portion of the zodiac into our own chart, every type of energy. And that includes the selfish energy, not just that people pleasing cycle, which leads to like really, I think, malignant Venus energy, like love, but it's resentful because I don't want to actually like please you. I kind of want you to go away. and I'm turning into this person is toxic for you. So there's that balance. Libra's a scale. So if people think I have a lot of Libra in my chart, maybe I kind of embody the cycle. It's like Libra's somewhere in your chart. Everybody has that one place where they're a little bit unbalanced or feeling maybe I give so much, I get nothing in return. It's kind of time to focus on that balance a little bit. That's the people pleasing in a person's sort of individual makeup.
Yeah, it's so true. And I was actually talking to a client the other day because they were in a situation where like they just feel like they're at ends and at the same time feel like they can't walk away. And I'm wondering if Saturn really plays into that for people, because I feel like, as I look at client sessions and, at my own life cycle and Andrew's and our whole family, I really can't help but notice that we're all like, basically, I feel like a dog just that and my face is being shoved in the poop. You know what I mean? Because like, oh, you made a mess. And it's like, here's your mess. Look at it. Look at it now. And it's so funny because this is where like addiction can ramp up. This is where so many things can ramp up. And I know for myself, I feel like it's like my things, like I love Sufi chanting. I don't know. I fell in love with it. One of my teachers was big into Sufism. And like, so it's like when we're wanting to be crawling out of our skin. And again, like I used to do like literally 3 hours of spiritual practice every single day, minimum. And today, like when I was doing my chanting, it's like I had 25 minutes and I could feel that like, wait, what's going on outside me? Oh, maybe I should check Facebook right now. Oh, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. And, that sovereignty of Aries and like knowing your value and you are you and you're so strong in you. I really feel that calling to like embody that. And I feel so many are. So do you think in our next new moon prep gathering on July 29th, do you think there's something we could add in to help kind of like smooth out navigation?
Just sort of, bring down the vibration. I think especially because we'll be coming out of at that point the full moon in Aquarius, which is that high energetic, like electric type energy. So I think, expect the anxiety is going to be spiked this month, but we should sort of kind of try to focus back on healing, really, I think our physical body connection, like honoring the fatigue. So if you are being told or guided to really nothing, like if you just want to, I honestly just want to watch TV, or I just want to zone out for 30-40 minutes, lowering, I think, that expectation threshold. And even if it's like one thing, like if you can just like lower your internal expectation, like just down a little bit, I think that can kind of ease off of that immense pressure, because that's really about like obligations. I think that's like the pressure we're feeling. And when you mentioned Saturn in relationships, Saturn is the ultimate karmic tie between people. It is the element that ties people to people they don't even like. This couple is married for 50 years and they fight all the time. That's Saturn. That's like Saturn. You're connected with one another. We all know that one couple. It's like, why aren't you divorced? But it's like, why are you stuck? That's why they're stuck with each other. That's like the glue that binds. So we're kind of coming into and off of that energy. So we really need to, I think, try to lower our individual self expectations, and deal with, forgiveness too of ourselves. Like if we can just forgive each other for our internal selves, for our shortcomings, I think that would be something to really think about now and think about as we come into the new moon, because then we can sort of manifest that forgiveness going onwards, because it's, and astrologically, the rest of the summer is pretty intense. So it really is trying to slow ourselves down, even though the planets feel like they're going a million miles a minute.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. All right. Well, awesome. So, Amanda Mary, what's your Instagram and Facebook tag?
Yes, so if anybody wants to, I mean, ask me questions or get a hold of me, on Facebook, it's Astrology by Amanda, and Instagram, it's at Astrology by Amanda.
Okay, awesome, wonderful. And if you come to our new moon preparation gathering where we, talk about what's coming up, we look at dharmas that are being asked to be activated, and we get to check in with Amanda about all things astrology at that time and what's going on. Please join us. So thank you so much, Amanda.
My pleasure. I hope everybody bears with the storm. It will be good. We'll be all good.
Definitely. Thank you. Lots of love. All right. I just stopped recording. Oh, no, I didn't stop recording.